Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first Python workshop. This workshop is brought to you by UCR Unmanned Aerial Systems from BCOE, as well as Management Information Systems Society from the School of Business. We hope you'll have a wonderful time learning about Python and staying safe during this pandemic. We will have our sign-in sheet available toward the end of the meeting today for those students who can't make it live. If your professor is offering extra credit for the participation of this event, today's keyword for the extra credit is the spelling mistake on our Instagram post on the 9th of January at UCR UAS. We'll be posting all the relevant links in the chat as we move through the presentation, and this session will be recorded and uploaded to our website within 24 hours. We know 6 weeks is not enough time for anyone to become a master at Python, so we'll provide comprehensive support even when we're not in session. I will host office hours right after this session if you have any follow-up questions. If you could ask us any questions regarding Python in our Slack channel as well. Without further ado, let's start coding. Okay, so while we're setting this up, we do have a question. So the question is, I've only learned C++ at UCR so far. Does anyone know how complicated the learning process is between the two languages? Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, I'm assuming there's quite a few computer science majors here, but for anyone who isn't, at UCR, they mainly teach C++ as a basis for students. And with that, it's a lot more complicated in terms of syntax than Python. And obviously, since they are different languages, it will be taking some time to get used to it, but we do have some information on how you can kind of transition from C++ to Python more easily. So yeah, there's no worries about that. Yeah, good question. How about from Java to Python? I think if I haven't had any experience with Python, if Sahas, if you have,
I have had some experience with Python and
or
it's
Java.
sorry, with Java, my bad. I've had experience with Java, yeah. I feel like the transition between Java and Python should not be too difficult. It's similar to the transition between C++ to Python. Python is typically very easy to pick up, or it's a more understandable syntax than Java or C++, and therefore should make the learning process a bit more easier than when you started learning Java. And since and our 6 week course is going to be kind of covering from the ground up in learning Python, you shouldn't have it shouldn't be too difficult to like relearn some concepts that you've done in in Java and relearn that into Python.
All right, thank you, Sahas. Okay, so it looks like the people coming in are slowing down, so we'll just go ahead and start. So once again, welcome to the Python workshop. Today is day 0. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about what we can use Python for, how it's different from programming languages you might be used to, and we're also going over how to install the software that we're going to need to work on Python itself. So let's get started. So the first thing that we'll do is going to install Python itself. So our technician is going to be posting the slides into the chat, or you can look at the comments in the given slides. The top link is if you have Windows, and the bottom link is if you have Mac. So go ahead and download those as Sahas is doing here, and just run the executable. Now, let's just wait a little bit here for everyone to catch up a little bit. And once you've downloaded the executable, if you could, on the bottom of your screen, click on reactions and raise your hand when you're ready. So again, once you've downloaded the installer, go ahead and raise your hand. If we have Jupyter Notebook installed, will the next steps still work the same? Eric, as long as you have access to a terminal that can use Python, that should work. And disable path length limit. That is not the same as add to path. Okay. Okay. Let's move on. So we are going to check the box at the bottom of the window where it says add Python 3.8 to path. And then we're going to be clicking install now at the very top. And that should just take a little bit. Will there be recordings posted? Yes, on our website. If one of our wonderful technicians could post our website in the chat. Okay, so after a couple seconds, it should say that the setup was successful. And congratulations, you have Python in your computer now. Now we'll just go ahead and close that. And next we're going to, well, first we have our coding language itself. And now we're going to need a way to edit the code itself. So for this workshop, we're using Visual Studio Code. And this is really a great tool to use. It's very simple and it still has a lot of power. So to install it, there's going to be the link in the comments just like before. And so go ahead and click on that link. And on the left side, there's a big blue button that you can click. And if you have Mac, go ahead and click that downward button, just like Sahas did, and click on whatever stable release matches your operating system. Now another executable should be downloading right now. And if you're having trouble, go ahead and type in the chat and I'll see if I can help you. Okay, so once we have Visual Studio Code installed, we're going to accept the agreement. And click on next. And click on next again. And we're just going to go all the way through. And here with the checkboxes, you can leave everything as default. So again, everything except for, or just add to path should be checked. And then all we have to do is click in install. So if you have Mac, should Python 3.8.7 look like this? So for that question, for Python itself, we should be past that already. So this is for Visual Studio Code, which will look different. So after it installs, you should be able to open up Visual Studio Code. So let's just do that really quickly. Okay, moving on. The next thing we're going to do is link our Python to Visual Studio Code. So most of you will have VS Code open already. So go ahead and go into there. And we're going to click on the extensions button on the left. And we're going to search up Python. And on the right, we're going to click on install on the right. And Sahas already has Python installed, but it should show install by itself in a blue button. And you can tell that it's the right one for the really, really big download number, about 29 million. It's crazy. And that should only take a couple of seconds. And let's set up a checkpoint here. So if you've gotten to this step, go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, so we have a couple people still downloading. That's fine. We'll just wait about 10 more seconds. Yes, as a reminder, all of this will be uploaded to the UCR website, or sorry, the UCR UAS website. So if you do miss a couple steps here, then we won't be able, or you will be able to look through everything.
So after the download, what was the second thing that you did? Just
yeah, so did you, are you talking about the VS Code or the?
Yeah, so what exactly is that?
So VS Code is an IDE, which is an integrated development environment. So that means basically we're going to be editing code there as well as using our code. So it's just a really good tool to develop things in Python and any other languages, you know.
Cool.
Yeah, good question. It's basically a UI for Python. Close. Yeah, so Kenneth actually brought up a good point. So an IDE is more of a UI for editing code. And it could kind of be a UI for Python, but first and foremost, it's a text editor. So that means you're dealing with text. And as you can see Sahas demonstrating, it depending on what language you're typing in, it automatically highlights things that are different from each other, which is very, very nice when you're writing, I don't know, thousands of lines of code, which you know you might be doing. And it's really tough if you're doing everything in the same color. Alrighty. Oh, I also love VS Code. Alrighty. Let's move on. So once we have Python installed onto VS Code, let's click on File at the top left of VS Code and click on New Folder. And now you can choose wherever you'd like to put the materials for this workshop. And Sahas is just going to put it anywhere in his computer. And for this, we're going to name it Python Workshop, but you can name it whatever you'd like. Yes, we do click on Open Folder. If Sahas, could you show that one more time? Yeah, so again, it's File and then Open Folder. And then you'll be able to make a new folder anywhere. Okay, so now this is going to be a little bit more complicated. So later on into the workshops, in about a month, we're going to be going over certain libraries for Python. So think of them as extensions that let you do more complicated tasks. And installing those libraries can be a hassle. So what we're going to do is install a library manager, which basically deals with all of that for us. We just tell it, hey, I want this library, and it installs it for us. And we're going to be using pip. So either by pulling up the slides or watching Sahas, we can install pip with these steps. So at the top of your VS Code window, you're going to click on Terminal. And then we're going to click on New Terminal. Okay, and this might open on the bottom. That's fine, as long as it works. All right, and then the next thing you'll type, so this is for Windows. If you're on Mac, this process is going to be really easy. You don't need to worry about that. It's going to be just one step. So again, you can, how do you create a new folder on Mac? Okay, so when you're on Mac, you should be able to two-finger click on the trackpad on any, oh yeah, you can also do that. You can two-finger click on any empty background and click on New Folder. Alrighty, so back to the terminal. So in our terminal, we're going to be typing in the command that's in your slide comments. So pi space -m space pip space install space -U space pip. And then go ahead and press enter.
I'm sorry, you said that was for Windows?
Yes, for Windows. If you have a Mac, the steps will be very simple and it won't take nearly as long. So we'll do that right after Windows. Alrighty, so that should be working right now. Sahas already has his installed, so it only took half a second. So let's raise our hands if we're finished with that step.
Oh no, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you so I was just looking at the slides. It says to open a new folder. How do you open a new folder again?
You're on Macintosh, right?
No, I'm on a Windows.
Oh, okay. So Sahas is going to show that again.
Okay.
So he's going to open the folder, and then here you can see all of your folders. So now if you right click on any empty space, you can click on new and then folder.
Oh, okay, right on. Thank you.
Yep. Alrighty. Is anyone hitting any road bumps or speed bumps rather?
Yeah, where do we plug in that that line into again?
Yeah, so again, we're going to open a new terminal at the top of the screen. And then a new window is going to open at the bottom or the side with a white rectangle for a cursor. So go ahead and click on that, and then you can plug that in.
All right, thank you.
How do you check you installed Python 3.8? If you, in the same terminal, if you type in Python space dash dash version, it should show. Yellow warning. Yeah, okay. So you will receive a warning that it's not installed in path. We are going to fix that, so no worries. Okay. Is pip similar to apt? Good question. So pip is kind of similar to apt in that it installs things for you, but it is it is specific to Python. So where apt is, if you're not familiar with Linux, apt is a really useful tool for installing packages on Linux, whereas pip is installing libraries into Python. Yeah, good question. And it says Python not found. Yes, I believe it is because of the path issue. How do you get a new terminal on Mac? If you go to the top of the screen, it should have a section called Terminal. Alrighty. And I think we will move on. So the next thing we'll do for Windows is we'll open our Start menu. And we'll type in Advanced System Settings. And we'll go ahead and click that. And there's going to be a window called System Properties that shows up. And now if you click on Advanced tab, if you aren't already there, you can click on the environment variables at the bottom. So now there's going to be two large sections of white. Okay, so where do we go to get that? No worries. So Sahas, if you could show that one more time. We're going to be going to Windows menu, Advanced Settings, and then click on that. And then that'll open up this window, System Properties. And then we'll click Advanced and then Environment Variables. And then at the bottom white section, you can see three buttons, New, Edit, and Delete. So we'll click on Edit. Oh, sorry, we'll click on Path and then we'll click on Edit. And then now there's going to be a set of buttons on the right side. So we'll click on New at the top right. And you see how there's a new cursor at the bottom. So now this part is going to be a little bit difficult, but we're going to show you how to do it. So we're going to go into our File Explorer, and we're going to find where Python is. So for most of you on Windows, it should be in the same path as Sahas. So it's shown in the slides. It's C:/users/whatever user you are. And then you click on app data, and then local and programs. And then Python 3.8, and scripts. Again, we're looking for scripts. And if you can't find app data, you can press the Windows key plus R, and then type in app data with percent signs on either side. And then just click OK. And you'll be in roaming. So now if you click on app data at the top, then you can find our local. And the steps are going to be the same to get the script. Yeah. So if anyone has any issues right now, go ahead and type in the chat or unmute your mic. This part is kind of complicated, so it's understandable.
So I'm at the part where, so it says, you said like in the slide, it says to type py-mpip install. But so from there, am I just supposed to like say enter or something?
Yeah.
And
so
then,
you can press enter.
And then it doesn't, I don't get any code. It just kind of goes to the new line. Like,
really?
Error code. Yeah, it just goes to the new line.
Okay, well, if there's no error, then that should be okay. But again, I will have an office hour after the session, so there's no worries. So you can ask after that. How do we do it for Mac? We'll be covering Mac right after we do Windows, and this one will be really short, so no worries. Brandon asks, do we need to put a backslash at the end? You can, but it's not required. So it's up to you. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to be moving on. So in the pip folder, there's only a CAC. Oh, yeah. So Mihir, I think you're in the pip instead of Python. So again, we're looking for Python. Rohit, so again, we're going to be clicking Windows plus R, and then we're going to be typing in %appdata%, and we're pressing enter. Okay, so it's going to be yeah, so no worries. So it's appdata/local/programs/Python. Downloaded Python. Okay. Oh yes. So on Python or on Mac, it's going to be yeah, my mistake. It's going to be Python 3 -- version instead. So Python 2 and 3 are quite different. So Mac has backwards compatibility with Python 2. All right, so moving on, we're going to be copying the path at the top of your window. So, but to do that, Sahas is going to be clicking on the empty space at the top where there's text. And that highlights the entire path, and that's great. So now we copy that by either pressing Control-C or right-clicking and clicking copy. And we're going to be going back to our environment variable window, and we'll click New. And then we're going to just paste that there. And we'll click OK. And that's it. We've already connected pip to VS Code. And this is very important. We will need to restart VS Code. So go ahead and press Windows, type in Task Manager, and press Enter. And then Sahas will be showing that one more time, just in case you missed it. And to close Visual Studio Code all the way, we're going to be clicking on VS Code. We're going to be right-clicking it, sorry. And then we're going to be clicking on End Task. And after that's done, we can just open VS Code back up. And we have our code working, or we have VS Code working. Yes, so we can also press Control-Shift-Escape to get to Task Manager as well. And yes, end task and then restart VS Code. And while the Windows people are doing that, let's move on to the Mac side. So thank you for being patient with this horrendous process that's been created by a bunch of old CS people. So for Mac, for installing pip, in the same way, we click on Terminal and then New Terminal. And in the terminal, we'll type in Python 3 space -m space pip space install space -U space pip. Again, the command is in the comment at the bottom of the slide. And go ahead and press enter after you've entered that command. Okay, and let's have a raise of hands who's finished and have any questions in the chat. We're coming in late, so yeah, we're going to be posting the slide links in the chat so you can cover the material that we've gone over already. Otherwise, we do have recordings that will be up on the UCR UAS website for you to review over what we've did for our installation process. So to restart VS Code, we'll do Control-Shift-Escape. And then Sahas, if you could show that process again. So we're opening Control-Shift-Escape, and then we're right-clicking on VS Code, and then we're clicking on End Task. All right. So I understand this is a complicated process, and sometimes computers are not your friend. So apologies for that, but we are going to be moving on just for time's sakes. However, the process is going to be very similar to what we've been doing. So next, we're going to be installing a library called OpenCV, and that's the CV in OpenCV is short for computer vision. So later on, we're going to be experimenting with computer vision, which is when computers can detect things that are in whatever pictures you take with a camera and check what kind of things are actually in the picture or what kind of objects are in the frame of the camera. Just to make sure, it says install pip 20.3.3. Yes, exactly. Alrighty, so same thing as before. We're going to be using pip to install these. So just copy paste the commands that we're going to be typing in the chat, or you can go to the slides that we've provided. How can we check if we've installed pip ready correctly? That's a good question. If you try to install something, then it should tell you if pip is working. But if you have any questions on that, yeah, so we will be installing a couple more things. So the next two commands are pip install numpy double. So we're going to have two equals after numpy and then 1.19.3.
Are these commands both for Windows and Mac?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, so after this point, after installing pip, everything should be the same between Windows and Mac.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Just like before, let's have a raise of hands when you're finished, and any questions in the chat if you have any. Still downloading. Okay. So I'll just wait a little bit, but yeah, so this is a little sneak peek on if you're interested in getting a little bit more into the computer science rabbit hole or programming in general. Sometimes the installers for these things are not the most optimized, and sometimes things don't work, but eventually it will work, hopefully. And if it doesn't, then there's no worries with that. We can just talk about that during the office hours after the session. Okay, so moving on, we're going to be installing one more thing before we have a guest speaker speaking. So we're going to be installing TensorFlow, which is a machine learning tool that we're going to be using to test out some text detection, which we'll talk about later on. So the process is the exact same. So it's going to be pip install -- upgrade TensorFlow. And okay, I see a lot of people are still downloading, which is fine. So while we wait for everything to download, because this TensorFlow in particular is really big, I'd like to welcome our guest speaker, Tiffany Tan, and she's going to talk about how she's been using Python as a business major.
Hello, thank you for the introduction, Scott. So my name is Tiffany Tan, and I am a fourth-year business administration student. My concentration is in information systems, and my minor is in applied statistics. So first, I would like to be clear, I am not a computer scientist, an engineer, or a data scientist, and my technical skills are not anywhere as advanced as Sahas or Scott. But Python and understanding coding is such a valuable skill. And I'll be talking a little bit about how Python and coding in general has helped me as a business student. So first, in my first 2 years at UCR, I was pretty involved in the startup world. So when I had an idea or a teammate had an idea, being able to use Python to code a framework of how we wanted to look made it so much easier to take off the project. And once we were able to recruit someone with more coding experience, it was important to understand what they were doing so we can keep them accountable and up to date and communicate it to the rest of the team. And basically what I subscribed to was basically project management. And if you want to break into the project management role, that's really important to be able to know coding. And yes, being able to bridge the gap between tech and business is so important. So if you want to be a tech leader and manage tech projects, you need to know how to code. And Python specifically is super common, super general, flexible, powerful, and great as a beginning code. And then going off of that, Python was one of my first coding languages, and I was exposed to it in Business 101 with Professor Rich Yue, and then again in Business 175. I really recommend taking that class if you're a business major, or if you're a computer science major interested in business, because I learned so much in that class. And once I was able to understand the logic and the way Python works, I fell into this whole rabbit hole of data analysis specifically, because Python, you can use it for so many things. And I really like data analysis side. And I found my love for statistics, which is why I am a statistics minor, and being able to analyze data to create business decisions. Python personally is not my favorite to use for data analysis, but because of Python and beginning to learn Python, I was easily able to transition to R, which I really like, which is another programming language that I really like. And knowing these coding languages also helped me with my internship at a startup. It was a small one, and I got a really good recommendation because of it. So simply put, learning Python really helped me with my business skills by helping me understand coding and technical aspects of the business world, because the tech industry is so big, and helped me find my passion in data. And that's basically my story. And I hope you're able to use your coding skills to do what you like, whether it is to manipulate data, create your own business, manage projects. And yes, that is my story. I think I got one question. How did coding help you on my project manager role? So basically, it wasn't an official project managing role because I was working with a startup, and it was a startup that I helped create. It failed, by the way, but I learned so much because I had to work with a computer scientist who was coding everything we were doing. And because he was coding, if I didn't understand what he was coding, I wouldn't know where he was at. And I wouldn't be able to communicate that with the rest of the team. And knowing how to code and keeping other people accountable with all their roles is what helped me push the project forward, basically. And yes, that's all I have to say. Thank you. I will pass it back to Scott and Sahas. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me through email, LinkedIn, or any other social media platform.
Sorry, one last thing, Tiffany. We had a question. Any recommendations for someone who's never coded before? I would love to take it, but I think I've been stuck in comp sci for much too long to give a good answer on that.
Any recommendations for anyone? I started coding by looking just YouTube videos and w3schools.com. It just really helped me with basic. And yeah, I got into coding in because of Professor Rich Yue. So he's always open in office hours. So if you ever find him his office hours, I would recommend going or taking his Business 101 or Business 175 class, because they talk about Python as well.
All right, thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, so there's a lot of different online resources that you can use. There was W3 Schools that Tiffany mentioned, Geeks for Geeks. A lot of people are saying solo learn as well. Yeah, and then I think there are going to be a couple more questions in the chat, but yeah, we can answer those later. And so let's move on. And if you're not finished with TensorFlow, there's no worry about that. We can, I believe we can still run things while we're downloading it. And okay, so moving on, we're going to be installing one last thing. and it's pip install upgrade pandas. And this is going to be in all lowercase. It should be much smaller than TensorFlow. So that should be a lot easier. And pandas is a data analysis and acquisition tool that's written in Python. So you can, instead of using Excel or other languages, you can use pandas to read in data tables with various different formats. You can also you can also do statistical analysis by looking for the mean, median, the standard deviation, even some more advanced statistics that honestly computer science majors don't always know. So I think when I copied the pip install, it says invalid index. Did you make sure that the command is all lowercase? Let's see. What about the previous commands? Yes. So that's a relic of a previous version of the slide, which we neglected to delete. So there's you don't need to do that right now. If you've been following the slides and you typed in Python and pressed enter, then you can just press Control C on Windows or Command C to cancel that. Or you can type in quit with open and close parentheses to close that. And then once you've done that, you will be able to type in pip install pandas. Yes, so there are some links and some other resources in the chat, which I think is really great. What is the OpenCV code for Mac? Does pip install OpenCV Python not work for Mac? If not, then I can check on that really quick. Okay. So we can talk about that, or we can work on that after the, okay. So Pandas looks like it's having a bit of trouble. So we'll talk about that during the office hours. Otherwise, you can just cancel and we can do that during the Pandas workshop.
I made a mistake while I was downloading TensorFlow, so I followed the one that's on the bullet point instead of copy pasting like the outdated thing that you said not to use. I used that one, and then that kind of like messed up everything afterwards. So now that I can't, like, I copy paste anything that you give me, it's gonna give me invalid syntax.
Okay, so right now, does it say, so Sahas, if you could go to VS Code and type in Python and press enter. Does it look like that?
Yeah, it looks like that.
Okay, so for anyone who's in this, that means we're in Python mode, which means you can type in single lines of Python and run things, which is useful, but we're not going to be doing that. So what you can do to exit that is we're going to type in quit with 2 parentheses and then press enter, and that'll save us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I've gotten stuck in there more times than I'd like to admit. Yes. So does anyone else have any questions on installing? I understand that TensorFlow is a really big file and it might not work every time.
So when we say print TF version, should it be 2.4.0?
Yes, that should work.
Okay, sweet. So is that it? And then I have to do the pandas?
Yeah. And the pandas, you can do it on your own time. I understand the download is really long. If our workshop crashed, do we have to start all over? If your VS Code crashed, you can most likely start on the same step that it crashed on. So if it crashed while you were downloading TensorFlow, you can just try that command again right now, or you can do that at another time. And okay, so while we're downloading that, let's do something that we can do while we're downloading. And let's write our first Python code. So there aren't any slides for that, but this process is really simple thanks to how simple Python is. So if we open up VS Code, if we look at the top left, there's going to be the name of the file that you just created about 10 minutes ago. In this case, our name is Python Workshop. And you can either right click there and click on new file, or at the very top left, you can click on file and then click on new file. Oh, where'd it go? Okay, so Sahas's computer must kind of lost that file. So we're gonna be doing something else. So if you hover over that area on the left with the name of your file or the name of your folder, you can either click on new file on the right with the file button, or right click the empty space in the middle and click on new file. And here we're going to be making our Python file. So you can name it whatever you'd like, but we're going to be naming it hello world.py. Now the .py is really important in that that's how the computer knows that it's a Python file instead of a C++ file or a JavaScript or R or any language, you name it. So once we've done that, you can press enter and it'll open up a new window. Can we get a raise of hands with if you've finished that part? So .py instead of, yes. It's asking me if you want to install linter or pylint. Yes, so linter and pylint are, I believe, text prediction extensions for Python. I would just say ask me later because it's useful, but it's not needed. But if you did click install, then there's no worries. You'll just have a little bit of extra plugins. Yeah, no worries. Alrighty. So let's move on. So now we're going to be writing our code, finally, after an hour. So finally, we'll be able to write a hello world statement. So for those of you who haven't done any coding tutorials or have any experience with code, hello world is a really nice first program for beginners, whether it's in a certain language or if it's in computer science or programming in general. It's basically just a way for you to make sure that your code's working, your coding language is installed correctly, and your text editor is saving correctly. So what Sahas is going to do is use a print function, which we'll go over more in depth in our next workshop, but we're going to be using print, and then we're going to type in parentheses. And it, as you can see on the right, it automatically types in the closing parentheses. So that's really nice of them. Yeah, magic. And inside, we're going to be typing double quote, and then hello world in whatever format you'd like. And make sure that the end quote is also there. So I'm going to be typing it in the chat if you'd like to copy paste it, or if you'd like to practice some typing. So is it okay if we use single quotes? Yes, Python is very nice if we use single quotes or double quotes, as long as they close each other. So you cannot do a single quote with a double quote and vice versa. And if you look at the top, oh yes, ooh, Sahas is going to be doing something really nasty right now, which you should not do. If you see on line 3, we have print hello world with 2 different quotes, and VS Code kind of yells at you. It does not say that you're bad. That's Sahas telling you that you're bad. It says that your code is not correct. can you make this font bigger in the script? Yes, you can. So we'll be going over that in a second. Good question, Brandon. So after we delete that horrendous line of code, if we look at the top right of the screen, there's a green triangle. And that's really useful where we can just run the code by itself. And if you see in the terminal that you use to install, it'll show your hello world. All right. If anyone has any trouble with that, let me know. Otherwise, we can move on to closing. And then in terms of changing the script, okay. So Sahas is going to be showing us how to increase the font size on VS Code. So he's going to open up, he's going to go to File at the top left, Preferences. And there's going to be a new window on the right of the Preferences, and we'll click on Settings. And then Text Editor. You don't need to do this. It's only if you have trouble reading the text. And we go to Font right under there. And in the second or third field, there should be a font size where right now it's 14. So Sahas, let's just set it to 20 for now. And it's a little bit bigger. So if anyone is having trouble, just let us know in the chat or unmute your mic. Otherwise, we're going to start closing off for this session of the Python workshop. Again, if you do have one of the professors that are giving extra credit for going to this workshop, first of all, thank you for coming. This applies to everyone, but thank you for coming. Really appreciate that everyone's here, and I'm really excited to show you all what you can do with Python. It's a really cool language, and it's very, very forgiving in terms of if you're starting in programming. And again, for the extra credit, if you can find the syntax error in the Instagram post that we posted promoting this event, then that's your code word for the extra credit. Do you need to install linter or pylint? No, you don't, but if you do by accident, then it's no worries. So go ahead and click on ask later or no thank you. Yeah, no problem. Do we need to sign in anywhere? I don't believe so.
Wait, hold on.
It could be wrong.
We'll be putting the links to all the sign-in information in the chat.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. All right. So if you can see this last message, there is a Google form for today's participation, and as well as some social media plugs. So go ahead and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Discord, Slack, or well, join our Slack. And again, if you got lost during today's lecture / workshop, then you can go to ucr-uas.weebly.com and look for the recordings there. And there's also going to be the slides for today. Yeah, thank you guys for coming. Again, I will be having an office hour from 6 to 7. If you'd like to, no, Twitch account, not yet. I need a tier 3 sub for twitch.tv/scott.tape. But yeah, so we do have an office hour with me from 6 to 7. And remember to join the Slack channel if you are not free from 6 to 7. If you join the Slack channel, you can join the Python workshop channel, or you can just directly message me for any questions you have. We are not selling GPUs today. Sorry about that. Alrighty. Again, thanks everyone for coming. I'm going to be showing some things you can do in Python, as well as helping anyone who's having trouble with today's content. So yeah, so class dismissed. However you end off workshops, yeah, so office hours are going to be starting now in the same Zoom meeting.
Yeah, we'll also have a community of Slack channel. So if you have any questions, join our Slack and join the Python workshop channel to ask any questions for our instructors. And thank you guys for coming today. And if you have any questions, Scott will be doing his office hour right now. So fire your question away.